Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Amy. I am a career advisor with Creative Careers, and today we're going to talk a bit about internships, why they're important. We'll cover a few other things like how to register them for credit, and then we'll have some time at the end for a Q&A. So like I mentioned on our agenda, we have first we'll discuss why you should do an internship, why they're important, when and where you can start your internship search, how to make the most of your internship experience. Oh, I'm sorry, academic credit for internships first. So we'll talk about how to register your internship, and then we'll talk about how to make the most of your internship experience. And then lastly, we will have a Q&A. So first and foremost, why should you do an internship experience? It's really great experience. You can build your resume by doing internships while you're here at Art Center. So think about it also helps you think about rather, does my employer value what I value? And are our goals aligned? So this will help you figure out which employer is the right fit for you, which skills you want to be strengthening, which skills you want to be working on in your internship experiences or in your work experiences. Who do I want to work with? So which employers do you want to work with? And then there are also really great networking opportunities. So while you're in your internship experiences, you have opportunities to connect with others. You're going to be working in team settings. So it's a really great way for you to build your community, connect with the people on LinkedIn that you've worked with. Like I mentioned, it's a really great way for you to build your resume and also strengthen your skills that you should be discussing or writing about in detail on your resume. Add more experience, more projects, and it's a really good way for you to identify your strengths. So what do you feel like you do really well? You can find that out through those internship experiences. Now let's talk a little bit about when and where to start your search. So usually, if you've come to us in an advising appointment, we will share with you that we usually recommend that you start your internship search about 6 to 8 months in advance of when you're actually looking to start that internship. This will allow you enough time to research employer application timelines, and by that I mean find out when internships will start being promoted by employers, when they'll be posted, where and how you can apply. Usually you can find this information on LinkedIn or the employer's website. If it's not found on there, you can send the employer an email asking for those details. And this time also, the 6 to 8 months also allows you enough time to prepare your application materials. So start on your resume, tailor it to that specific job description, or at least get the foundation ready. So have your education, your work experience, your skills all on your resume. And then once you find that internship that you want to apply to, you can tailor it to that specific role. And then it also allows you to update your portfolio as needed. So as you complete your projects, you should be updating your portfolio so that it's ready for when you want to apply to internships. And now a couple of different places that you can look for internships. One of them is LinkedIn, and I will share with you where on LinkedIn you can search. And share my screen. Okay, so this is our LinkedIn resource. On it, we have information about how to start with creating a LinkedIn, what to include in your profile, and then information about how to grow your network, how to search for jobs on LinkedIn. But let's go into LinkedIn and I will show you a couple of different places you can search. So you can use the jobs tab, of course. So if you click into the jobs tab, search for the kind of job that you want. You can also search, for example, product designer, and then it automatically selected the jobs tab so that it's showing you all of the jobs, and then you can use the filters to edit when you want the date to be posted. If you wanted it to apply to something that's more recently posted, something that has less applicants, something that's in a different location. So that's where you can use those filters. You can also see posts instead of jobs. and see who is posting about hiring an opportunity. You want to still be aware of job scams, so do your research about the employer that you're looking to apply for and the person that's posting about those opportunities. But sometimes employers will post that they're hiring someone and they might provide the direct link to the application or to the employer's website where you can apply. Or sometimes they'll highlight the job that's on LinkedIn, usually in this jobs tab. So that's another way to search. And if you want to talk a little bit more about LinkedIn and how to use it to its fullest potential, I highly recommend scheduling an advising appointment, and we can talk a little bit more about that. Now, another place you can search for opportunities is the Creative Careers website. Well, you can use this as a resource. And I will type these resources or include them in the chat so that you can take a look at them at a later time. But on this resource, we have information about different ways that you can look for opportunities. One of those is through LinkedIn, of course. You can also look at our job boards resource here. You can use our navigation menu or just scroll through to view the resources and the links we have. Our Center Connect is one of the job boards you can check, and you have indefinite access to Connect even after you've graduated, and that's where you can see all of the job postings that employers will request that we post on our website. We have general job boards resources or links for those like Indeed, LinkedIn, international job boards. So if you're looking to do an internship internationally, you can check out Going Global, which you can access through our Center Connect. Has lots of really great resources as well. Best practices for resumes, cover letters, what to expect from the interview process. So Going Global is really helpful if you want to do an internship outside of the US. And then there's remote job boards, freelance, education. These are all the different industries that we have job boards for. And then one more resource we have on our website that I want to show you is our internships by major list. So these are all employers where students have interned. And this is all organized by major. So you can take a look at which employers your peers have majored with, or I'm sorry, interned with, depending on their major. And their links are here, so you can check for any opportunities within their websites. All right. And then lastly, we have one more resource here that I want to show you. These are search strategies for international students. And I will also drop this in the chat. This is on our Creative Careers website. So we have information again about how to prepare your materials, which ones to prepare, how to research companies that hire international talent, and we have links for those. And just some tips for that job search process, or internship search process. All right, let me go back to my slides. So there's lots of different ways you can search for opportunities. And if you want to talk a little bit more about this, I recommend scheduling an advising appointment. We can focus on what you're looking for and how you can find those opportunities. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more about academic credit for internships. So Creative Careers manages our 4-credit internship program. You can find the guidelines and requirements to register an internship for credit on the Creative Careers website. I will also summarize them here and include the link where you can find more information in the chat. Okay. So let's first talk about eligibility. So if you want to get credit for an internship, you do need to have, as an undergraduate student, have completed at least 70 units. If you're a grad student, you need to have completed at least 30 units to apply to register your internship for credit. There are also some GPA requirements. So for undergrad students, you need to have at least a 2.5 GPA, and for grad students, you need to have a 3.0 GPA. And then lastly, for students studying on an F1 visa, we recommend that you meet with an international student advisor to verify eligibility, and then also get CPT employment authorization from them before starting an internship. Now, a few more details. We go more into detail on our guidelines, but to summarize, internships must be a minimum of 10 weeks and fall within Art Center's 14-week term schedule. So your internship can start before the term. Let's say you're applying for a fall internship and you want to get credit for it in the fall term. It can start before week 1 of the fall term, but it has to go into at least week 10 of the fall term. Or it can start in week 2 of the fall term, but it has to go into at least week 11 of the fall term. So it has to be a minimum of 10 weeks and fall within Art Center's term schedule. Interns should also be assigned a supervisor who is a professional in that field, who has expertise, education, and training in your area of study. And we will ask for that information as part of the application, but I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, more information about the kind of or the amount of credit you can receive. You can receive either 3 or 6 units per term for up to a maximum of 12 internship units. So to be eligible to receive at least 3 credits for your internship, you need to be working for at least 12 hours, 12 internship hours per week, or about 126 hours per semester. That's about what it equates to. Or if you want to receive 6 units for your internship, you need to be working at least 24 hours per week, or about 252 hours per semester. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, tuition will be charged per unit of credit that is earned. You do not have to register your internship for credit, but if you choose to, keep in mind you will be charged tuition for each credit that you want to earn. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the process for registering your internship for credit. First, always turn your offer letter or your verbal offer into an offer letter or formal offer by asking for that letter, because you will need it for your application, but you should also just have that on hand. An offer letter provides tangible confirmation of the position, and it protects you if the internship doesn't turn out as promised. So you, regardless of whether you're registering it for credit or not, you should ask them for an offer letter in writing. It should have, if you're applying to register, or rather if you're trying to register your internship for credit, your offer letter should have a couple of pieces of information, which I will detail here. So the first is a statement just saying that the organization or employer is accepting you as an intern. You also should have your start and end dates on your offer letter. That's how we determine if your internship is at least 10 weeks within the Art Center's term. You should also have the number of hours you'll be working, again, so we can verify your eligibility and how many credits you're able to receive. You should have the rate of pay so we know which type of employer agreement to send to your employer, and we'll talk a little bit more about that employer agreement towards the end of the presentation. You should have your internship position title. We want to verify it's aligned with what your learning objectives will be. Your name, or the name, title, phone number, and email address of your supervisor should be included on your offer letter. And then lastly, a brief description of your responsibilities, its educational value and relevance to your area of study. So if for some reason your offer letter is missing some of these pieces of information, you can request them via email from your employer. And then when you're applying, just screenshot their response with those details that were missing from your offer letter and attach that to your application as a supporting document. So in addition to that offer letter, attach a separate piece of information with, or a separate letter separate email with those details that were missing from the offer letter. You don't need to have your employer write a completely new offer letter. And if your employer hasn't written you an offer letter yet, you can ask them to include these 7 pieces of information so that you don't have to worry about asking for it later. All right. So after you have your offer letter, you should meet with your department chair or the approved academic staff. Usually this is done either in person or via email, um, depending on when you're planning to apply. Um, you will need to develop 3 learning objectives for your internship, and you'll need to have those approved by your department chair or the academic staff that you're meeting with. And you'll also need to meet with them to decide which courses you are waiving. So if you're waiving 3 credits, you'll be waiving 1 course. If you're waiving 6 credits, you'll be waiving 2 courses. We recommend that you meet with them before you apply. You have to meet with them before you apply to get your learning objectives approved because they are part of the application, but also to confirm that there are courses you can waive with your internship to save you the time of applying and then realizing that maybe there are no courses that you can waive. So you should be meeting with your department chair before you submit an application on Connect. If you're studying on an F1 visa, you'll also need to meet with an international student advisor to check your eligibility status, get your work authorization. You'll need to complete an I-20. Make sure to sign it. You need to sign the form and then upload it to your application. So that's an additional form that you need to upload to your application if you're studying on an F1 visa. Now, next, once you have completed the first 3 steps, you can submit an application on Connect. So I have a screenshot here of what it will look like on your end. Once you've signed into Connect, you can click internship registration and then just follow the steps to upload all of the required documents. You want to make sure you're reading the instructions carefully and reading the tuition acknowledgement carefully. So there'll be some information there that you'll need to agree to. And then once you submit your application, we recommend that you monitor it on Connect to check the status of it. If your application is incomplete, we'll reject it and notify you of what's missing. Then you would simply upload whatever is missing. We would review it again and then let you know if we need anything else. All right. And then if your application is complete, we have everything we need, we will contact your employer for the employer agreement. And I'll talk a little bit about what that is. Just keep in mind, once you submit your application, it will be reviewed in the order in which it was received. And applications submitted for the fall term will start being reviewed in week 12 of this term. All right, so now for the employer agreement, this is something that we send to your employers. Once you've submitted your internship record, we will send them an employer agreement either for an unpaid or paid internship. So we have 2 different forms for each kind of internship. And they will need to sign it and provide details of who will be completing the grading requirements throughout your internship experience there. Now, your internship registration will not be approved until we have that signed form from your employer. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure you remind them to submit it if they haven't already. If your application hasn't been approved yet, it's probably because we have not received your employer agreement. And we will send it to your employer via Adobe Sign. Any employers offering unpaid internships will be asked to verify that they meet the federal guidelines. And they are there to make sure you do have a valuable and safe internship experience. So we do require an employer agreement to approve your application. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about petitions. So petitions are what you need to submit if for some reason your internship does not meet the requirements to register it for credit. So here's some common reasons you might need to submit a petition. One is if you don't meet the credit requirement. So let's say you've completed 68 units or 69 units, but you need 70 units as an undergrad student to register an internship credit. You may need to submit a petition along with your application. If you do need a petition, we will review your application and we will reject it and let you know what you would need to petition for. Because on the petition, there are a couple signatures you need to get, required signatures you need to get. You need to sign the petition as well. And then you will also need to attach a separate document that explains your reasons for needing to petition. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure you're reading those instructions carefully. Another reason you might need to submit a petition is because your internship is less than 10 weeks. So again, once we review your application, if we determine that this is the case for for your application, we will let you know why it is that you need to petition and what to include in your petition explanation. Or if you already know why you need to petition, you can include that in your application when you upload it initially. Or you received your offer letter after the deadline. That's another reason that I've seen students needing to petition. All right. Now, deadlines. Some important deadlines to remember. The first is applications are always going to be due Friday of week 1. So applications for the fall term will be due the fall term Friday of week 1. And by due, I mean it needs to be approved by Creative Careers. So simply submitting it by Friday of week 1 will not guarantee that you've met the deadline. You need to have it approved by our team. And as a reminder, in order to have it approved by our team, we need all of the requirements on your application, your learning objectives approved by your department, an I-20 if applicable, your degree audit, and your offer letter. And if we don't have that, then we are not able to approve. And then we also will need the employer agreement. So keep that in mind. The employer agreement's critical in approving your application. And then petitions are due Friday of week 2. So if, for example, your employer did not send us back the employer agreement by the deadline, then you have until Friday of week 2 to submit a petition, and we will review it. The petitions committee will approve or deny your petition, and if they approve it, then we'll be able to approve your application. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how to make the most of your internship experience. So there's a couple things you should expect once your application is approved, and I'll summarize them here, but you can also review our website for more details. So one of those is a few grading requirements that you should be aware of. So students and employers need to complete the following forms on Art Center Connect by Friday of week 13. That's the hour log. So enter your hours on a weekly basis so that you know how many hours you worked that week. You should have multiple entries for each week that you worked. The midpoint check-in and evaluation, this email reminder is sent out in week 7, and it's for you to complete your midpoint check-in. It's a couple of questions to kind of reflect on your experience so far in that term. And then your employers also need to submit a midpoint evaluation. So you need to submit something and your employers need to submit a midpoint evaluation as well. And that is sent out in week 7. It's due halfway through the term. And then lastly, your final reflection and evaluation. So you will need to submit a final evaluation to reflect on your experience. You'll be asked a couple of questions. And then your employer will also need to fill out a final evaluation, rating your performance and explaining what your experience was like in the internship. Academic credit for internships will be assigned by the student's department chair, and it'll be awarded on a satisfactory or unsatisfactory basis. So keep in mind, to receive a satisfactory grade in this internship course, the student must satisfy the expectations and requirements. Any questions before we talk a little bit more about how to make the most of your experience? All right, and we'll have some time at the end. So expectations. There are a few things that we recommend, whether you're registering your internship for credit or not, some tips to consider to make sure that you make the most of your experience. You are expected to abide by the professional practices of the internship site. You also want to make sure you're fulfilling the full responsibilities outlined in the offer letter. Complete all of your agreed upon hours, also should be outlined in your offer letter. Maintain open communication with your employer regarding schedule changes or if you're running late or any other concerns that might arise. And then practice strong interpersonal skills. This is a good opportunity for you to practice those skills when you're working in a team setting, collaborating with others on projects. Now, some general tips. You want to make sure you're dressing appropriately. So find out what is standard for that employer. Usually they will let you know in the onboarding process what is standard dress, but ask if you're not sure. Consider projects confidential. So you might be asked to sign something. Keep that in mind. You want to make sure you're also sticking to the work schedule that you determined with your supervisor and be on time. Understand what your company's policies and procedures are and ask questions if anything is unclear. And then show up to meetings prepared. So have a notebook, a pen so you can take notes. You can remember instructions if needed, or just write notes about a project that your team is working on so that you're better prepared. And then stay positive. You want to make sure you have a good attitude and are just positive throughout your internship experience. People will notice and remember the intern who had a friendly demeanor. You also want to make sure you're focused. So you're focused and fully present. So keep your phones on silent. Avoid doing any personal work during your internship experience. Remember, you want to make the most of it. So you're there to learn everything you can, absorb everything you can. So be fully present. And then lastly, take initiative. So this is something we hear from employers. So ask to be on a project that interests you, ask questions during meetings and events, ask to attend meetings and events. Keep in mind you're not expected to know everything, so don't be afraid to ask questions and just learn everything that you can while you're there. Now let's talk a little bit more about resources. This is our resource on for credit internships. I will show you where you can find everything, and I'll also include this link in the chat. This is the link I included earlier, but this is where you can find our guidelines. Our updated guidelines will be here. This is what they look like right now. So more information about eligibility, internship criteria, internship credit, offer letter criteria, employer agreements, deadlines, and then let's go back here. This is more information about how to register your internship for credit. We go into detail here, include required documents you need to include on your application. Again, we talk about the employer agreement, what the approval process looks like. So once we have everything, including the employer agreement, Creative Careers will approve. Then it goes on to your department to approve. And then lastly, to enrollment services to approve. Here we have more information about petitioning if you need a petition. The form is here. You want to make sure you're following the steps outlined and reading everything carefully. Make sure you sign your form and get all of the other required signatures. And we have resources down here like our sample offer letter. If you're not sure what an offer letter might look like, this is what an example of what it might look like and the information that we require it to have. But it's also outlined up here. And then lastly, This is more information about our grading requirements. How to submit your hour log on a weekly basis, your midpoint check-in, and then your final reflection. So all requirements need to be submitted by Friday of week 13 to give your department enough time to review them and give you grades give each student grades for their experience. Okay. Now I have some time for a Q&A. If anyone wants to drop questions in the chat or unmute yourself. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, I had a question. Sorry, could you reiterate how many credits you need to do this for an undergrad student?
Yes, so for undergrad students, if you want to register your internship for credit, you need to have completed at least 70 units. So by the end of the summer term, if you want to register an internship for the fall, you need to have completed at least 70 units or 70 credits.
Okay, thank you. And I also have another question that kind of leads into it. Um, I'm currently term three. I'm gonna enter term three this fall, and I was looking if I could get an internship towards like the summer of next year. How likely do you think it is that I actually get an internship? Because I'm not term eight or like term seven.
Yeah, that's completely fine. I think it's still a possibility for you to get an internship. And now is the time to start looking for them if you want to do an internship next summer. So you can start preparing now. But it's definitely a possibility. It really just depends on what the employer requires. So read the internship posting carefully to see what it is that the employer is looking for. They might just ask that you be registered or be enrolled rather in a specific program, depending on what your major is or what the role is.
Okay, thank you. Wait, and sorry, I have one last
Sure.
question.
Mhm.
If I don't end up getting like my internship doesn't get credit, do you think it's still like worth it to still do it, even though it's not gonna give me any credits for my like degree?
Yes. Great question. Definitely yes. Regardless of whether you're registering your internship for credit or not, we highly recommend that you seek out those internship opportunities to get more experience and to build your resume and just be better prepared moving into, well, once you've graduated and are looking for full-time, part-time, and freelance opportunities.
Thank you so much.
Mhm. Any other questions? You can feel free to drop them in the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself. All right, I am going to share our contact information here. So if you do have a question, you can send us an email here. You can also drop by our office if you have like a quick question that we can answer in person. We are located on South Campus. It's building 1111, room 220. We're right across from the elevators. We are here on campus Tuesdays through Thursdays, but we work virtually on Mondays and Fridays. So keep that in mind. If you have a question on one of those days, you can send us an email. Um, and if you want to talk about your internship experience specifically, or if you're in the process of looking for internships and want to talk a little bit more about that, I highly recommend scheduling an appointment with us through Art Center Connect. So schedule a career advising appointment and we can talk about that one-on-one, either virtually or in person. And that's all I have for you today. So I will stop the recording and stay behind a couple of minutes in case anyone has questions.